Welcome back to the iceberg, everybody. Before we start today's podcast episode, I'd like to mention, if you couldn't hear it already, that I bought a new microphone for future podcasts. Today's episode is very special because it will be the microphone's maiden voyage. However, I have been using the mic for about a week and the quality is far superior than my past microphone. I'll leave a link down in the description box in case you guys want to check it out for yourselves. Now, without further ado, roll the intro music. Today's podcast has a very special treat in store for you, and please do note that the word treat that I used is indeed placed in quotation marks. We'll have more on that later. But first, I want to ask everybody, what comes to mind when I say the word food to you? Or if you think of the word food, or just mainly food in general. For many listeners out there who are hungry at this point in time, you could probably feel your mouth start to water. For others, maybe you're thinking about what you just had for lunch or you're going to have for dinner soon coming up. Or in another case, maybe past memories came up, such as your grandma's house and helping her bake the most wonderful cookies with that delicate buttercream frosting that melts in your mouth. Now, for me, when I think of food, I usually think about my favorite dishes like homemade mac and cheese or chicken Alfredo, all that good stuff. Even just a creamy cheesecake would satisfy me. And now especially one with a lemon glaze. Now, food encompasses an extremely wide variety of flavors, cultures, and signature dishes. Now, I'm sure each and every one of you have tried to create or recreate a classic recipe, myself included, like you stumbled upon or have seen a professional chef like Gordon Ramsay prepare. Quick side note that his raspberry cheesecake recipe is very, very amazing. I made it several times, and all I can say that it's gone within the first 3 days, so that should tell you how good it is. I would encourage everybody to take some time and get at least one of his cookbooks. There are just so many wonderful creations he has for everybody. There's something for everybody. For this episode, I don't want to focus on the hardcore dinner entrees that leave people with a bellyache. I want to focus more on personal creations, or perhaps inspire you to create your own dishes or variations on one. Trust me, I'm no professional chef by any means. I haven't gone to culinary school, which means I don't have the proper credentials, but I'm just a simple person trying to put flavors together that mainly taste good to me. Reverting back, you would know the title of this episode is called the Cheese Tartar Sauce Bagel episode, and I can already try to picture some very confused looks on people's faces, or even the disgusted ones once they saw that title. Maybe some of you just clicked on the video just to see what it's all about. Now, have patience, it will all be revealed in due time. Those three words, cheese, tartar sauce, and bagel, probably don't go together in a sentence, let alone follow each other. But let's go into a little bit of backstory, as I always do, so you can have some context why this episode even exists. Now, a few years ago, I was really obsessed with your traditional bagel, your plain bagel, But it wasn't a plain bagel per se. It was more of a blueberry one. And yes, I've have other flavors as well, like your cinnamon and your everything bagel. But we're just going to focus on the blueberry one because it was the most enticing to me. And I know some people don't even like blueberry ones. They're 100% missing out. But anyways, whenever we had bagels at the house, I would probably eat one every day of the week with cream cheese until they were gone. Eventually, and don't ask me why, I wanted to start experimenting with flavors since I ate the blueberry bagel so often. Maybe it was just because I was bored with a traditional bagel and cream cheese, and maybe it just thought it needed something extra. Now, I don't really remember where the specifics of exactly how my future quote-unquote signature snack would come to be, but I probably just looked around the refrigerator and just said to myself, let's see what we have to work with. Probably I was thinking more along the lines of what flavors could complement or add to the bagel itself. Now, don't get me wrong, cream cheese is perfectly, very perfectly fine just to put on any bagel. It was delicious to start out with. I was just at the point where I needed that extra oomph of flavor. So, for a second, imagine you're me. You open the refrigerator and you're on a mission to discover the next signature topping or toppings to put on your bagel, which, keep in mind, you have been having for the past X amount of days in a row until they eventually run out. Now, for those of you listening on headphones and are in the kitchen or near a fridge, I want you to open up your fridge and glance around from top to bottom. Don't open any drawers or do any digging. Just find an item or two or three, some ingredients, and comment down below what first comes to mind when you are looking for an alternative bagel topping. For those of you listening in a different room, pause this episode for just a quick minute or so and rush to the kitchen and repeat the same step. I'm very, very curious to see what everybody comes across. Now, for me, I was feeling adventurous at the time and I wanted a sweet yet salty taste. My reason was that it could complement a plain bagel's blandness. Plus, sweet and salty foods are just my jam. And yes, for those of you who caught it, I switched over to a plain bagel and not the blueberry one here for context, because that's what I use in my own dish. You could use other variety of bagels, but I would advise you to use with caution because some flavors don't taste as great as you may think. I've tried this combo with my favorite blueberry bagel, and let's just say it wasn't appetizing. So use alternative variety of bagels at your own discretion. Back to the fridge. Tartar sauce by itself would have that salty sweet flavor I was looking for, so I had to just give it a try. For the first test, I placed my plain bagel in the toaster for around 3 minutes until it popped out and it was golden brown on each of the halves, not burnt by any means because I hate burnt bagels. And then I used the butter knife to spread the tartar sauce like I would have done with cream cheese. I do remember that the first bite wasn't terrible, and I knew that I achieved what I set to accomplish, but I knew that the bagel was missing something to tie it all together. So I went back to the fridge. I knew the additional ingredient couldn't be another liquid, such as a sauce, because I didn't want the tartar and the other sauce to mix together and you would have a mess of everything. So I had to search for an ingredient that was readily available and it could be used to tie something together. Then my eyes came across the oh so familiar orange square wrapped in clear film. American cheese. For those of you taking notes, you don't have to use American cheese specifically. You could have a block of Swiss or mozzarella or sharp cheddar or any other cheese that comes in a block and just slice those up into strips that would then be placed on each bagel side, making sure that they cover up the entire side, including the hole in the middle. This will help prevent the tartar sauce from leaking out. Personally, I would recommend using a block type cheese instead of American because it tastes 100 times better in my opinion. But American cheese was what I used in my original bagel recipe for probably the longest time until I started experimenting with the block cheese. But if you want to capture what I first tasted, then you should go American cheese to begin with and then move slowly into your blocks of cheese. So once you have your type of cheese that you're going to use, whether it's American or your block type of cheese, you have to cook it. Now, you might think a toaster would be used during this process, but you would wonder how the cheese wouldn't get burned and then stuck in the toaster at the bottom and then just, smoke up the entire kitchen and have your smoke alarm go off. It's a very valid question. And to that, I have a very simple solution, and that being a microwave. If you've never had a microwave bagel before, I will confess that it does lose its crispness and the crunch associated with those first bites. But combined with our ingredients we obtained from the fridge, I think it'll compensate for the lost texture. I have not tried this in the toaster oven, but feel free to experiment with that. I would assume that the bagel would come out better if you're looking for that crunch. Since any type of cheese often melts very fast once heated in the microwave, you should keep a close eye on it. But before we put our bagel inside, we need to assemble the bagel on a microwave safe plate. And please, please do use a microwave safe plate because you do not want anything to explode that would ruin the recipe. So here we go. You must first take a bagel of your choice and then cut it in half. And then you're going to place those two halves on this microwave safe plate, remember, and either unwrap your 2 slices of American cheese and put one on each half of the bagel, or use your block of cheese so that you have 4 uniform slices on each half, again covering up that divot in the middle. Now with your cheese on top of your bread, carefully place the plate into the microwave for about 30 seconds to a minute, just before the cheese starts to bubble like crazy. It can bubble a little bit, but you don't want it to bubble like crazy. You're looking for a nice even coat of melty goodness. Once the melting process has taken place and your cheese is all nice and gooey, Take the plate out of the microwave and set it on your table or countertop. Be very careful with the bagel as it will be hot. Please don't burn yourself. Now take your bottle of tartar sauce and complete about 2 circles on each of the melted cheese halves. Be cautious as not to drown your bagel in tartar sauce because it will take the cheese taste out of it. You don't want to bite into the bagel and have it ooze tartar sauce because that's just disgusting. After both of the cheese sides of the bagel have their fair dose of tartar sauce, and without burning yourself once again, place one of the halves on top of the other so you have a bagel sandwich. The cheese should melt into each other a little bit if it's still warm, and if not, don't worry, because the tartar sauce will be the binding agent. Now, before you bite into it, take your tartar sauce bottle once again and put some on the plate to dip into. Again, this step is completely optional, but if you don't have this additional dipping portion, the bagel will taste blander, in my opinion, and won't have that full potential. Now we have reached the moment of truth. Are you ready to experience the sweet and salty flavors of perfection? When your cheese tartar sauce bagel sandwich is cool enough to be lifted with your hands, take one side of it and dip it into the tartar sauce on the plate, and then take your first bite. And then all you have to do is repeat the process until fully consumed. Lots of you are probably wondering why on earth I even thought of this, or are still thinking that is just a cruel joke, but I 100% assure you that this is no laughing matter. I can contest to this. I have personally consumed these creations myself, and I do truly think they give the bagel the extra ounce of flavor. Now, I don't blame you if you hate what you are tasting, because our taste buds all accept taste very differently. However, I sincerely applaud you for putting in an effort and taking time to create this probably ridiculous snack in your view. But hopefully in the future, there'll be a recipe that will be a bit more of enjoyment to you. For those of you who have genuinely enjoyed my creation, leave a comment down below if you would change anything about it. I haven't tried these ingredients on anything else besides a bagel, so it's open for experimentation across the board. Or if you've just been inspired to create something better of your own design through this recipe, I'd be very happy to test it out for myself. Just leave a quick recipe down in the comment section below. I'll also leave a recipe in the description box for the cheese tartar sauce bagel so that it's a more easy step-by-step guide if you are very anxious to try this out for yourself. All in all, today's episode was quite the turn from previous topics already discussed, but I hope you all enjoyed and it made your day a little bit brighter. Maybe you got some laughs and giggles while you were following along and you just created the cheese tartar sauce bagel and you bit into it and you just made the most disgusting face, or you loved it, who knows? But if you liked today's episode, consider hitting that like button and subscribe to the channel for future podcast episodes. Who knows what I'll think of next? I really don't know. It's going to be very hard to top the cheese tartar sauce bagel episode that we all heard today. But as always, I'll leave my links to the social media and one for my Discord, so feel free to chill out on an iceberg and start a conversation. But most importantly, stay frosty, my fellow penguins.